want to talk about splits is because splits can kind of make you feel like if you have splits in your energy in your chart, it can sometimes make you feel like you have different parts of your personality because
Hmm.
you're going to have these different defined energy parts of yourself that aren't really communicating with each other. Human design reveals who you are energetically and who you came here to be. I'm Dana, human design specialist.
And I'm Haley, the human design newbie. Listen in as we explore how leaning into your authentic self is your ultimate path to success. Welcome to the Human Design High podcast. Let's get into it.
All right, so hello, Haley. How are you doing today?
Hello, I'm good.
Oh, you sound so subdued and calm.
My first try was a little out there.
A little too excited on our first hello. All right, now that we
It was
stopped
a bit
laughing
much.
about that. Okay.
Oh, it doesn't take much.
No. Well, it's good to see your face and hear your voice. I missed you, but we had our um, guest episode last week, so
Yes,
somebody
yes,
had to
yes.
fill in for you.
Yes.
No, they weren't filling in. Tracy was a wonderful guest, and if you haven't listened to that episode yet, including you, Haley, go ahead and listen to our
Why do you always
last
throw me
episode.
under the bus?
Well, I liked everybody to know that
That I don't listen.
you have other interests. You're not a one-dimensional person. You're not everything human design. You're just like everybody else out there who's listening. You may not be like obsessed with human design like me. You're just
Mhm.
living your life and learning some things along the way as you go, and it's all good. So, today's episode, I want to talk
Mhm.
about definition and splits. And
Ooh.
you're like, And I'm going to say this in the offset, whether or not it shakes out to be true. It may be a shorter episode because we've already covered
Oh,
stuff about definition before.
yes.
And the idea of split definition is pretty straightforward, but there's really not much information out there talking about it. So we always talk about our definition, which is where we have defined and undefined centers, gates, channels, that whole thing, right?
Mhm.
And so before we dig into what it means with the different types of definition, because there are 5 different types of definition. Okay. If you're listening and you don't know this about your chart, what kind of definition you have, because everybody's going to have some kind of definition except for reflectors because they don't
Mhm.
have any defined centers. And
Mhm.
that is one of the 5 types of definition is no definition.
Oh.
Is there factors, but if you don't know and you're curious and you want to, either grab your chart or go run a chart. If you haven't already run a chart, you can pause, go over the website,
Mhm.
humandesignhive.com, to the free chart generator, get a chart, come back, listen. And this might give you a little more insight into what we're talking about. So basically, if we start talking about definition, we're talking about centers, right?
Mhm. Right.
And a defined center means what about your energy?
It is consistent
Mm-hmm.
and uh
That's the
I was
most
gonna say
important part.
present, but that's like kind of the same thing.
Well, yeah,
Prevalent.
it's reliable, consistent energy. It's energy that you always have access to. It's yours,
Mhm.
right? Part of your energy signature. So, like I said, that could be a gate defined in your chart, well, if you have a channel, that means you're going to have centers defined because the channel
Mhm.
is what connects the centers. So, but for this purposes, we're going to be talking about the actual centers being defined, which when you're looking at your chart will be the ones that are
Colored in.
colored in. I know it seems remedial at times, but I thought you might need a refresher. It's been a couple weeks since we talked
Yes.
mechanics. And
Hey,
this
and this could be someone's brand new episode. You never
it
know.
could be. That's why we're doing a little overview. And this is purely like not purely, but this is a real mechanical aspect of the chart and how energy works. And so with the centers, if it's colored in on your chart means it's defined and it's consistent, reliable energy. It's your
Mhm.
energy that you are basically sharing with the rest of the world. All
Right.
right.
Mm-hmm.
So if it is undefined, then that means it is
Not consistent and
not.
reliable.
It is inconsistent. It's not sustainable energy
Mm-hmm.
because you're borrowing this energy from those around you. And I think it's most important to note, especially when we get into this further discussion, that when you have an undefined area, it does not mean you don't have that energy, right?
Mm-hmm.
It means that, as you said, it's inconsistent, it's more variable, and
Mm-hmm.
it is more conditional, really. It is conditional based on who you're around, because when
Right.
you have an undefined center, you are receiving energy there from those around you. You are amplifying it
Mm-hmm.
and reflecting it back. Okay, I'm like trying to get you.
Look, I said it's been a long week.
Okay, it has. It's been a long week. She's got a job. Takes a lot out of her. Okay, so amplifying, reflecting it
Mm-hmm.
back to others, and so
Right.
the important thing there is you do have that energy. It is more inconsistent. It is dependent on who you're around, and it is really, it really is a relational energy because
Mm-hmm.
it's going to be where you're learning from others, because if you
Right.
don't have a fixed way of expressing that energy, you're learning all the different ways that people express that energy.
Mm-hmm.
So when you have definition, when you have these channels, these gates that are activated that create channels which connect centers,
Mm-hmm.
what you might not notice at first, because you might look at your chart and be like, I mean, it's real noticeable on your chart, but it's not so noticeable on my chart because I have defined ajna, throat, G center, sacral center, spleen, and emotional center, emotional solar plexus. And you're like,
Probably would
whoa,
have
she's
just been
really.
easier if you didn't, if you listened what you don't have defined.
Hear me out, hear me out. But if you
Okay,
saw all
okay.
those areas defined, you're like, wow, that person has a lot of energy defined. They have a pretty strong, I don't say sense of self, but they have their own energy expression. They might feel a little bit, but I have a split definition, which means not all those centers that are defined to each other.
Right.
So there's going to be different areas. And that's what we're talking about here with this type of definition is these split off areas of definition. Now it's more noticeable in your chart because you have two centers
Yes.
at the bottom of the body graph and two at the top defined,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's a big split.
Yeah.
So as we said, there's basically 5 different types of definition, one being that
Okay.
no definition, as we
Yep.
said, reflectors. So that means that's about 1% of the population. Then the next type of definition is called a single definition. And that means you do have centers defined
Mm-hmm.
and they're all connected to each other.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm. We have a simple split definition. Oh, and I should say the single definition, that's about 41% of the population has the single definition. The simple split
That feels like a
definition.
lot
Yeah.
to have all of them, like all of your definition connected.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it doesn't mean you have like all
A lot
center.
of
I mean,
definition.
it's pretty rare to have. Well, we'll talk about more about that. We'll not get sidetracked there because we can get sidetracked in so many different ways. All right, and so okay. So did I say simple split yet? No.
You started to get into it and then you went back
Okay.
to the percentage.
Okay. And so then a simple split definition is kind of what we talked about with mine, which is you have just 2 separate areas of definition, and there's generally just one gate that is going to bridge that split, which we're going to talk about more detail in just a minute.
Okay.
And that's about 46% of the population. Now this starts to become a little more understandable. Triple split definition, what would that say to you?
I'm going to say there's 3 different areas of definition.
That is correct.
Oh, yes.
You are paying attention. 3 separate areas that are not connected to each other. And then actually there can be a quadruple split. No, first of all, triple split, 11% of the population. And then the quadruple split, as you can imagine, would be
4.
Yeah. which also is 1% of the population, but would also mean that they would have to have at least 8 or 9 centers defined, but
Tell me
none
again
are
how many
connected.
centers there are?
9.
9. Okay.
Wow, it's been a long time, Haley.
I also don't have my chart up, so I couldn't just count for myself. I've lost my chart.
You lost it.
Yeah, when I got a new computer, I don't know what happened to it. And I haven't used your website to get a new one.
I have some homework for you.
Don't judge me.
I'm not giving you homework.
Okay.
Print out your chart, look at it again. I mean, I know you know what it looks like as far as definition, right? What do you have defined, Haley?
Yes. I have my head and my ajna defined, and then my spleen and my root.
Correct.
And that's it.
That's it. Right. Okay. So, what's interesting, why we want to talk about splits is because splits can kind of make you feel like if you have splits in your energy in your chart, it can sometimes make you feel like you have different parts of your personality because you're going to have these different defined energy parts of yourself that aren't really communicating with each other. And so it could make you feel like you don't always know certain things about yourself, or you wonder why sometimes you're one way and sometimes you're another way. It can make you feel like you have a little split personality, but not in the diagnosable sense, but just in the different parts of personality. Splits can also make it harder sometimes for people to make decisions if they have split energy, because again, there's these separate feeling parts of themselves, and especially if it is anything that has to do with the head and the ajna being split off energy from the rest of the chart, as you can, imagine, makes you way more in your head, right? Yeah. And so what's also really important here when we talk about splits is that when you have a split in your design, and we did that episode about electromagnetics of how we're attracted to the other end of a channel if we've got like a hanging gate.
Yeah.
And this is really prevalent in this conversation here because you're going to, throughout your life, attract people to you that basically have these gates or channels that bridge these splits, right? And so it's just kind of another aspect of the electromagnetics, but also the quality or the characteristics of these missing gates or channels can be this major motivating factor in your life, that you're always looking for that missing piece that you may think is there, but it's not there. There is nothing missing. You're designed the way you're designed, and the only thing that would be really drawing you to is you to learn about that other energy in different ways.
Right.
So, so you could feel compelled to pursue the qualities of this gate or channel that would do that, because you almost pursue it in a way that you're like trying to fix something that's wrong with you, or you're trying to find that person that completes you or whatever, because now most prevalent here, everybody's born the way they were meant to be born and designed. There's nothing incomplete in your design.
Right.
And you
Or
have,
wrong.
right. And you have every aspect of the energies represented there. You have them available to you, just in different ways. That's the most important thing to remember. So this is just an exploration here. So if we are always looking to bridge some of these gates, it can be, like I said, a lot of not self behaviors that can occur. And, so there's that discussion. Okay. Now, in human design, I know we talked about this when we talked about the throat center, but in human design, there's a saying that all roads lead to the throat, that all the energy in the chart is in one way or another trying to make its way to the throat. And so when we're talking about definition, this becomes really important because, or splits, I should say, those splits, what we're talking about, these bridging splits, these energies that are going to help complete that, is most prevalent when it, like the ones that are going to take precedence, like if there's a hierarchy of what gates are going to be more attractive, it's going to be the ones that help get that energy to the throat in the easiest way. Okay.
Okay.
So let's just go a tad bit deeper into these types of definitions and splits.
Okay. Hmm.
So I would say the no definition is pretty self-explanatory. And
Yeah, I
we
think that
know
one
that,
got that one.
and that would only be the reflector type. And as we know, they're heavily influenced by their environments as it is. So
Hmm. And the
there's,
moon.
and the moon, that's correct. So there's the no definition. So the single definition person,
Hmm.
which this actually is your dad, single definition. He has only three centers defined, but they're all connected to each other. And
Oh.
mhm, well, he's a manifesting generator, so he's got the 3420 that takes that sacral straight to the throat.
Hmm.
And then he's also got sacral connected to the emotional solar plexus. And so
Oh.
now this energy is getting to the throat, but because he's emotional, he kind of has to take it a little bit slower at times because of that emotional
Hmm.
wave. But so a single definition person, if all of the defined centers you have in the chart are all connected, it means there's a nice flow of energy there,
Hmm.
especially if they are a manifesting generator or a manifester type and all it gets to the throat. These are
Hmm.
definitely going to come across as people that are like very self-contained in a way, because
Okay.
the rest of us, if we don't have this direct connection to the throat with a motor,
Hmm.
we are reliant on other people to get our, if we have undefined throats, or we
Hmm.
are generator types where we have,
Non-motorized
yeah,
throats.
or non-motorized. But there you go. It's getting in there.
Because I remember you have a defined throat, but it's not motorized.
That's correct. Yeah, it's a non-motorized throat. So those the rest of us like that, we do have to rely on being around other people in order to make those connections. Okay.
Hmm.
So but single definition does not.
Now, you could still be single definition, but not have the definition lead to the throat, correct?
Yes. Yes. So you could have all your centers that are defined connected to each other, but it could still not get to the throat for sure.
Okay.
And people with single definition don't really need as much time to reflect on, let's say, different aspects of themselves that other people do. Like they do seem to carry this more self-contained energy within them because nothing feels separate or broken off in their
Mm.
energy. They're still gonna, experience the energy of others, but like their own energy, they generally tend to
They don't feel
understand that.
disconnected on things.
Right, right. Which I think is interesting because also I think sometimes this disconnection in your energy, as far as these splits can be, is like you definitely might tend to see yourself one way, but other people can see you a different way because they are experiencing all your energy from you, right? And not
Mm.
just these
Yeah.
cutoff parts. And I think, like I said, especially
Hmm.
if there's that head identification part, it can definitely occur. Oh, I should also say that the single definition people, they can digest information a little bit faster, a little more rapidly because they're not having to make these connections in their energy. They can just kind of
Mm.
assimilate things a little bit easier
That
because
makes sense.
because they don't need other people to help them do that.
They got a nice flow.
Yeah. So the simple split definition, as I said, means that there's two areas, but there's generally just one or more gates when that would bridge that split. And what I mean by one or more means you only need one of them at a time. Okay. So an example of
Mm.
this, I mean, don't really have the visual here, but so like my definition, I have the ajna and the throat connected to each other by the 4323. And like I said, I also have G center, sacral center, spleen, and solar plexus. Now, there's not really anything getting up from the solar plexus to the throat, but in the spleen, I do have gate 48, which the other end, that channel is gate 16, which is the throat.
Hmm.
Okay. So since my solar plexus is connected to my sacral is connected to my
Spleen.
spleen, and my sacral is connected to the G center. So those four centers are all connected. Okay. And then it's
Hmm.
disconnected from the ajna in the throat.
Right.
So it really only takes one gate, which one of three gates for me would be 16 or gate 1 or gate 20. Any one of those gates, if I'm around somebody that has one or more of them, is going to get all my energy lined up
Mm-hmm.
in single definition and getting energy to the throat at the same time. So, not ironically, it's not ironic at all.
Unironically.
Not ironically. Um,
Coincidentally?
your dad has two of those gates that need to bridge those splits for me. So that would explain part of that.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think well, I do give him more definition when we're together, but we still have those areas in our chart that remain undefined between us. But the electromagnetics were enough there between those really important areas for me to get my energy to the throat. He already has energy at the throat. Anyways. So people, when they have a split definition like that, as you can imagine, there can be these split energies, like we just said, where you might feel there are different parts of yourself that you might feel more aware of at times than others.
Mm-hmm.
And that also means you need a little bit more time, possibly to assimilate information or to digest it, or even to make decisions, because you're needing to find ways to kind of have all that energy kind of flowing at once. Doesn't mean it's impossible. It's just, you just gotta take I mean, yeah, it doesn't mean it can't happen without other people around. But it's just sometimes just give us a little more space. And depending on your type, I mean, these are the really cool things that people need to take into account in relationships, is that we don't all move at the same pace, right? Yeah. I mean, because, and like in our case, we're both generator types, your dad and I, but he's a manifesting generator with a single definition, and I have split, and I'm a generator. So generators in general take a little more time. They move at a little bit more steady, slower pace, but also, I mean, I can see it. I don't know if you see it, but the speed of which your dad can like
make a decision.
And he'll be like, "That's it, we're doing this, let's go." And we're like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, whoa!" Everybody, we're like,
we haven't even what is happening?
We haven't talked about this yet. Like, what do you mean? No. And I feel that pressure a lot to like make faster decisions around him, but I think I'm tempering him a little bit to be like, "Okay, you might make that decision quickly, but let's slow it down a little bit.
Let's take a step back."
But he can be way more decisive. I mean, he can be indecisive like anybody can, but when he's not following his, strategy and authority, and he's just trying to do what he thinks his open mind and everything tells him he should do, not good. But okay. So, you have a wide split definition, and this
large split.
It is a large split, wide split.
So, but is it still considered a single split? Because I only have two areas of definition.
Yeah, it is a single split. Well, it's not a simple split, which is mine is. Yours is a wide split. So it would take at least a channel and some gates, possibly even more. One channel for sure it would take for all your centers. No, it would take one channel and one gate, because you have the 1858 with that root and spleen.
Okay.
Okay. In order to get the energy up to the throat, to your head and ajna, you would need the full channel of 1648, which continues that line from the spleen up to the throat. And then you do have, coming off the ajna, gate 43. So you would need 23. So you would need...
So that's what you're saying. So I would need that gate up there, but then the whole channel between the spleen and the throat.
But also, I will point out to you, because with your parents around, with the two of us around, it may have been easier, because with your dad having another one of my bridge gates, which is gate 1. So when we're around him, or gate 20, either one of those give me that definition, which in turn also gives you the definition when you are in the mix with the two of us.
Mm,
because we help then bridge some of those other gates for you. Especially
that's crazy.
I know, especially the gate 20 is probably is what's really doing it.
What is 20?
Well, gate 20,
What
your
and
dad,
where?
gate 20 is in the throat.
Okay.
It's part of the manifesting generator channel of charisma, 3420. That's the sacral center to
Okay.
the throat. Gate 20 also connects to gate 57 in the spleen, which I have 57. So that's the connection point there for the three of us, for you, because
Mm.
when we are together,
Mm-hmm.
I get his 20. And then you get my
Give me that 20.
5720. You get that 5720. And then you're just like, woo, we are all lined up. We're just zinging along with that single definition. Yeah. Where it's like, good Lord, if anybody's eyes haven't crossed trying to listen to that, I don't know if that was the best
They're
thing
like,
to do
where is
there.
this? What is happening?
Yeah, I don't know if that was the best thing to break down right there. But you're not looking at a chart and you're kind of following along, so
Yeah. That's why I have to ask you where and what it is, because I don't have the chart.
yeah.
See, I'm asking the right questions.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, so yeah, just the two of us together
Just the two of us.
does not bridge all those gates to give you that definition, nor me, because you don't have those gates that you don't have any of those gates that bridge my gates. Okay. Bridge my splits, I should say. You don't have them. And I don't have enough. I don't have enough gates to get your way down there energy up to the throat. But when your dad gets in
every
there,
single center, I'm trying. I got a hanging
you're
gate
trying.
everywhere.
You are trying. It's just not working. Yeah, I mean your throat only has one gate coming off of it, gate 45. So, but yeah, when your dad's around, then you have that energy getting up to your throat in single definition. So, with a motor attached to it, I should say. So no wonder you like being around us so much. No wonder.
You're pretty cool.
All right.
So I'm still confused on where my split, my large split, wide split, where it falls into which definition or which type of split / definition. Simple.
It's part of that.
So it's like a subset of a simple or a single split?
Yes, it is. It's a sub split of the simple split.
Subsplit.
Because the simple split meaning there's only two defined areas that are not connected to each other.
So it's more of a single split than a simple split?
It's not the path that gets there. It's the number of centers that are split off from each other. So it's two sets of centers split off from each other. That makes it
single split.
Simple. Yeah. Simple split. Yeah.
Simple is misconstruing.
Construing.
What?
I don't know if that's a word.
I think it is.
Misconstruing?
Well, then what would the word be?
There is misconstrued or misleading.
I think misconstruing is a word.
Misconstruing, not misconstruing.
So
you had AD. It wasn't an extra D. It was AD.
Well, I mean, it was extra.
Okay. So yeah. So the simple point meaning it's only two separate areas of definition in your chart that are not communicating with each other on a regular basis. Okay. Now the difference with a wide split, such as yourself, and a little simple one is mine with just one gate, is that now it says that this wide split can really, the person may not feel that what is missing is something within them. They may feel like it's just altogether someone else's problem that's missing in there. They just don't have the things that you need. It's not like, because it doesn't feel like it's there's not this big magnetic pull of just one type of energy that you're looking for or that your energy is looking for. Man, this is not really all very conscious stuff. This is just a,
Right.
and so that's one difference there. So triple split definitions, meaning they have the three separate areas, right? Now, this means that they would need several, again, more than one gate to help bridge these. They would need several different connections. And they say that people of triple split definitions, again, are going to have those different feeling places within themselves. It's going to be a little bit more challenging to assimilate information quickly. You know, they might need to take a little more time. But also, it says that with a triple split to be really in contact on the regular with lots of different types of auras, let's say, so different people, because it can tend to make someone feel that if they're always in one person's like field that bridges that, it can kind of make them feel a little bit hemmed in and controlled by that one person's energy, because it's always staying consistent. It's a good to still get a sampling of different ways of connecting that energy, someone with a triple split. So it's healthy to interact with more people. Yeah. Because if they have a triple split, they're going to have, you know, quite a few centers defined, you know, and so they might have this sense of themselves. But then if they have just one person always kind of linking those up, it can feel a little bit confining to them. And then the quadruple split, the four different areas of definition, like I said, these are going to be very well defined, heavily defined people that have either 8 or 9 centers defined. But because it's interesting, if you just look at a body graph and you can see all the different ways they can, I mean, when you look at a quadruple split, you know, it looks like somebody, when you would first look at it, if you saw someone's chart, you're like,
wow.
Whoa, man, they are so defined. They have all their energy together. They must have it like just zinging going on all the time. Like they know what's happening at all times, but that could be somebody that really needs, I mean, they
got 4 different areas.
Yeah, that's going to be a lot of areas that need some help connecting. And so they may have this strong energy signature of their own, you know, to other people, but to themselves, they still have these areas of themselves that feel like totally not connected to other parts of themselves. So it can take them a little bit more time to make decisions, make changes, you know, all these different things. So those are the different types. And really, when we talk about these splits and these influences and everything, it's important to remember again that what it is that actually conditions us. So when we're talking about the conditioning, but also the electromagnetics here of what attracts us to people and the people that we bring into our life, it's going to be really an order of significance. Is going to be, first of all, those gates that help get that energy to the throat.
Right.
Is what is going to be most attractive to you and people. And then especially if that is an energy that someone in your family of origin carried that same energy, it's going to feel even more of a draw to you when you're out in the world. So you'll keep.
Because that's what you're used to.
That's what you're used to. That's correct. Y'all so correct. So you know, there may be people out there that have kept, you know, attracting the same kind of person in their life. And they might be asking themselves, why does this keep happening? Why do I keep doing this kind of person? And that's one place you can look. But also it just helps you, I think, when you're looking at your definition to see if you're single, split, or, you know, simple, triple, quadruple. It's just another one of those areas where we can get a better understanding of how our own unique energy flows and how what we may have thought about ourselves as like, oh, I'm so much slower than this person, or feeling a little bit flaky, or like, I don't know who I am, but you know, I've got a defined G center, but I don't feel connected to this part of myself, because you hear that a lot too, that they're like, well, you may say that, but that doesn't count. This is just one of those areas where, again, there's no one answer
Mm-hmm.
to the question of really what is my human design telling me, because there's so many parts to it, and where it
So
helps
many
to
layers.
yeah, that have somebody else's eyes on it, or just
Mm-hmm.
to keep these things in the back of your mind and how they really start to all layer together within yourself. But really, it's just another way to help you understand yourself a little bit better
Mm-hmm.
and how your
Mm-hmm.
energy flows, and that there's nothing wrong if it doesn't feel like you're as consistent as the next person or whatever. There's lots of factors. Your definition here is just one of them. So I just
Yep.
wanted to address that part of design, because I really, really, really love looking at the centers and the interactions with people. And the more I
Mm-hmm.
talk about human design and teach about human design, I think this is part of it I really love talking about, is how it affects our relationships.
Yeah. We
And
don't live in a vacuum.
no, no, even when we think we'd like to, eventually, even the hermit has to come out of the cave.
Yeah. You got to interact with
No.
people.
Well, we're intended to, and you can especially see
Mm-hmm.
in the conversation of splits how much we really are intended to, because, when you think about this design that was perfectly you, but still is requiring the input of others around you. Like you said, you're not in a vacuum. We're not in a bubble. We need to understand how we're interacting with each
Mm-hmm.
other. And, I see it as kind of taking responsibility for your own side of the street and knowing what's yours and what's not. And especially if you're the one broadcasting out the energy, which we all are
Mm-hmm.
in some way, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's so funny, because that is one of the things in Course in Miracles, and because that's all about relationships too. It's just like, no matter how much, even if it's 99% someone else's fault, there's still a little part of it that you
contributed to.
yeah, you're not in a relationship. You can't have a relationship with someone of any kind and not have some part in that relationship, right? And
Otherwise, you wouldn't be in the relationship.
right. And I don't want to hear all the arguments. Well, people talking about horrible things, children abuse. That's a totally different story. What we're talking about is our relationships we choose to be in. And we have to understand our own part in any relationship, because that's the only part of the relationship that we have any kind of control over, is our own input, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it has shown me time and time again in my life that the more I've understood myself and what I'm doing and what I'm reacting to and what I'm putting back out there, well, if I can change that, then things around me change. Like this, I think with human design, like with your dad, even though we've been together for over 30 years, you're going to find lots of annoying things about someone after 30 years. You still
a long
love
time together.
Yeah. But this has given, in times where there is more challenging times in a relationship, it has given me so much more sense of grace, and like, for him, and just understanding his process is going to be different than mine now. If I could get him to understand that. But it's enough for now that I understand it, and he does listen to me eventually. But they just start to notice things, and that's what happens when you change things in your own environment, your own reaction to things. It does ripple out. So understanding yourself is always key.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's a good way to put it.
Well, thank you. All right, so I guess that's where we're going to wrap that up today. I think we've talked about that. So
we tied a nice little bow on it.
Yeah, well, I hope so. Anyways, it was fun chatting with you today, and look forward to the next time. And until next time, everybody take care of yourself, and I will see you later, Haley. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Well, you made it all the way to the end of today's episode, so you must have liked what you heard. If you did, make sure you subscribe so you never miss an episode, and perhaps leave us a good review. And if you know someone who wants to dig into all things human design with us, make sure you share the Human Design Hive podcast with them. We'd really appreciate it. Thanks for listening.